Hello, Women of Welcome community. My name is Heather Brandt. I have the honor and privilege of sitting with Caroline today. Caroline has been a foster parent, and we know that May is Foster Care Awareness Month. So we wanted to highlight her story and jump in with some questions with her for you just to learn more about foster care and what that could look like with unaccompanied minors. But we are so privileged and so honored to be able to sit with you. Thank you, Caroline, for joining us today. I'd love if you could just jump in, share a little bit with our audience about yourself and ultimately kind of what led you to the refugee and immigrant kind of space.
Sure. Hi, thanks so much for having me. So like you said, my name is Caroline and I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with my husband and three children. And so I grew up in a Christian home and was raised to know the Lord, thankfully. And I saw my dad do a lot of mission work in Kenya, Africa from a very young age. And I was fortunately able to travel there with him several times. And he mostly did medical mission work, but he also was able to help start a school in a really underprivileged area of Kenya.
Wow.
And actually, a lot of the students that came to that school were refugees from the surrounding countries who left due to war and violence and difficult situations in their home country.
Mm.
So, throughout my times visiting Kenya, my heart just started to grow for the vulnerable and the poor and the marginalized. And I quickly started to realize from a young age that this was what God had called me to and
Mm.
made me really passionate about. And so then as I got older, I went to college and I studied early childhood education. And then I had the chance to work in a school in Nashville, Tennessee, where several of my students were newcomers to the United States. And so I was able to work closely with them, develop relationships with their families, and just kind of help them navigate a new language, a new
Mm.
culture, a new school system, and everything. And my heart just continued to grow for the immigrants and refugees that I knew in my community. Um, and so, yeah, those are the main things that I feel like led me to this space.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it is a consistent theme that we hear often is, people who've left the United States or have traveled abroad or have just seen kind of the rest of the world come back and just realize like, man, what we have in America and just the reality that that is simply just not true for the rest of the world. And so I feel like yeah, it's just a consistent theme. I love that it's part of your story and to see how the Lord uses that all throughout is just really cool. So can you share with our community a little bit about what are unaccompanied minors? Talk a little bit about how kids end up in care, what that process kind of looks like, and how you, I guess, kind of jumped into that.
Sure. Yeah. So unaccompanied minors are children that are coming to the United States across the border alone. So they arrive at the border alone and then they're processed. And typically they're coming here to be with a sponsor who's usually a family member or somebody who's close with their family that their family back in their home country has sent them to be here with. So um, my husband and we got involved in foster care about 7 years ago. And when we saw this program for unaccompanied minors, our hearts just felt like we felt like God was leading us to this because we had such a heart for the immigrant and refugee.
Mm.
And then we spoke a little bit of Spanish, so we thought that might be helpful since many of the children in this program were coming from Central and South America. But like I said, they're coming to be with a sponsor, and a lot of times they're leaving horrible circumstances in their country. There's extreme poverty, but there's also gang violence, and a lot of kids are being extorted in their families and their businesses. And it's just a very dangerous place for a lot of people to be. So a lot of times parents make the hard
Mm.
decision to send their kids alone. Maybe they send them with a group of people led by a smuggler, or they'll send them with another family member, or sometimes just alone
Mm.
because they feel like this is their only hope for a better life. And then sometimes some of the children that are coming have been separated from their family on their journey over here.
Mm.
And so they get to the border and then they're alone, and oftentimes they're put into foster care programs like the one that we were a part of.
Wow. I think you touched on something that we talk about a lot, but I think is really important to highlight because there's a lot of questions surrounding like how could parents, send their children alone, or that question comes up a lot. And it's, I mean, as a parent, you're like, I couldn't dream of, possibly doing that. But I think you shared and talked about something that's really important is it's this unimaginable choice that parents have to make. And, um, oftentimes it's out of love for your child that you do make that decision of we're going to send them. Or like you said, there's other reasons why children do end up coming alone. So I think it's important for all of us to realize and hear just the various reasons of why children might come alone, because there's a lot that we don't understand and choices that have to be made. And yeah, I think that's really important that you shared with us. So you shared a little bit about kind of why you and your husband wanted to become foster parents, but can you talk a little bit about what has this journey taught you? What are some big takeaways through the process of becoming a foster home? And yeah, share a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that we learned throughout this process is that these are people coming just like you and me. And
Mm,
they were simply just born in a different place. And
mm,
we have the privilege of living in a place where we don't have danger at our doorstep every day. And we don't have to worry about typically about the safety of our children.
mm,
And so these are people, human beings, children, men and women who are made in God's image and just want the same things that we do in life. They want love and acceptance and safety, just like we do.
mm,
And we were just able to see that these kids just want to be kids. We love doing things with them, like playing soccer in our yard and getting ice cream
mm,
and playing Play-Doh, all the things that my kids love to do now as well. And I think it just opened our eyes to see that these are just people made in the image of God, just
mm,
like me. And I think with everything going on in our world and our country right now, there's just a lot of rhetoric being spread about immigrants and refugees that is not true. And it can be easy to believe that kind of stuff if you're not close to these people and proximate and actually having relationships with them. And so we were thankful to just be able to get a first row view into these children's lives. And so now we can spread truth to people about what immigrants and refugees truly are. And they're just amazing people.
mm. I love that. You used the language that we use a lot at Women of Welcome, which is choosing proximity and choosing to be up close and personal, and relationship is how we can see kind of the different narrative that maybe than what is spoken, publicly or even nationally about refugees and immigrants. It's so important. So, what would you say for maybe families who are wanting to get involved, or um, are just walking this process? Like, what encouragement would you have for us who might be scared or thinking about, oh my gosh, this could drastically change our family? What encouragement do you have for our community?
Yeah, a couple things. The first one is you do not have to be qualified. I will say my husband and I, we were young, we didn't have children yet. We had no idea how to be parents, but we felt God calling us to this and we said yes. And he worked through us. Like it was truly nothing from us that we had done or had been qualified in. And so I feel like a lot of people are worried to become foster parents or step into this space because they think like they're not good enough or they don't know how to do it. But I'll just tell you that we felt the same way. And the other thing is, like you said, a lot of people have fear. I think there's a lot of fears behind it, like fear of the unknown or fear who's going to be coming into your home or fear of a
Mm,
broken system or fear of like what your family members and friends might think, because a lot of people have different views on this topic, which we've experienced. Um, but I think it's helpful to think about the fear think about it in a different way, the fear that these
Mm.
children are experiencing. So they're here in a new country with a new language, a new culture, and they're separated from their family. So just imagine the fear that they must be experiencing. And they've been through, every child that we had in our home had been through so much trauma, whether that was something that happened in their home country or something that happened to them on their journey here, because the journeys here are very dangerous. So I think when you just change your perspective and think like, okay, I'm scared, but think about how scared these children are, and just by simply welcoming them into your home and giving them a safe place to sleep and providing them with nurture and care and showing them the love of Jesus, you could truly change the trajectory of their lives. And so, although we were scared as well, we feel like when we said yes and stepped out of our comfort zone, we saw God move in extremely mighty and amazing ways that we could have never imagined. So, I would just encourage people to think past the fear and think of all the positive that could come out of it.
Mm. Oh, it's so good. I love that. I love that line of thinking past the fear. Like that is so, it's so true and it's so good. So you talked about this just a little bit, but share with us how have these children, first of all, I maybe you can talk about, I don't know how many kiddos you welcomed into your home, but just maybe how have these children changed your view of the system, or how have they changed your family?
Yeah, so we had 8 different children come into our home throughout
Wow.
the time that we were foster parents, and it was short-term foster care. So some of those it was just one day, and some it was a lot longer. But each one made such a huge impact on our lives. And we actually had the opportunity to adopt our son through this program. Typically, the children that are coming unaccompanied are coming to be with a family member. And so this is not a situation that usually turns into adoption. But his story was just so different. It's very complex. And after 4 years of being his foster parents, we did end up adopting him. So, of course, our lives have been forever changed for the better, meeting our son through this program. But also, like I said, just getting proximate and hearing real stories about these children and their families, and just really just getting to see what happens, not from the news, but just from actually having relationships has changed us so much. And we've been able then to have conversations with so many other people in our lives who are unsure about what's going on. And I feel like that we've helped be able to open their eyes to the truth as well. Um, and yeah, so I feel like those are the main things.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so true. Like, and I'll say it again. I know we talked about it before, but like relationship with people is truly what changes hearts and minds. And I think about that often, like with our relationship with the Lord, like it's relationship with Him that moves us from point A to point B. And it's the same with how He moves, like in and throughout the world, is like through relationships. So it's so, so true and so important. Um, Caroline, are there any last things that you would like to share with us or share with our community before we go?
Sure. Again, just hitting on the point of, I would just encourage anybody who's thinking about this and who has a program like this in their city to look into it and see if this is something that you feel like God is calling you to, because our lives have been forever changed. And I'm just so thankful that we said yes, and then God did the rest and He worked. And I know He could do the same for you as well.
Mm. Awesome. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time and for doing this interview. We know it's going to impact people who are seeing this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.